Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us. My name is Jake Valaschini. I'm Commissioner in 1C07, the chair of the ABC and Public Safety Committee. It is February 8th, Wednesday, February 8th at 7 p.m., and I'm calling this meeting to order. With us here as well are Commissioner Peter Wood in 1C03, also the chair of the ANC, and Commissioner Barney Shapiro in 1C08. Thanks everyone for joining us. I'm not sure if you saw, but we had a last minute addition to the proposed agenda. Before we get started, I would propose that we add Mola Empanada, having the committee consider a new retailer's Class C restaurant CR application, ABRA 123761, Mola Empanada LLC, located at 2438 and a half 18th Street Northwest, to the agenda between Code Red and the Adams Moratorium Zone conversations. Do I have a second?
You have a second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm muted. No. Okay.
Nope, you're on. All right. Thank you very much. That is unanimous. So I will move that in as agenda item number 3. There it is. And with that, Sean, can we please promote Captain Hong to give his police report?
Yes, of course.
Thank you.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can, Captain. Thank you so much for joining us. I know it's been an absolutely really challenging week for y'all and that you're very busy. So I was hoping that we could just do the regular monthly update from last month, but then we've got a lot of guests on the line tonight, and I suspect that there are going to be a lot of question about the recent burglaries that have been taking place in the neighborhood, potentially amongst other things. So if you wouldn't mind doing the update, and then we can move on to that.
Sure, I'll do the update briefly. Total crime for January 2023 compared to 2022 had an increase of 11 from 46 last year to 57 this year. Violent crime decreased by 5 from 7 down to 2. And property crime increased by 16 from 39 to 55. Of the violent crime, we had 1 robbery and 1 assault with a dangerous weapon where someone used a vehicle to strike the victim. That was close with an arrest. And we have 5 burglaries. And in addition to 5 burglaries, we had some destruction of property where they destroyed the glass but didn't make entry or get anything. And if there's no questions about those, we can go on to the questions.
Nope, I got a question about those.
Okay.
Just real quick. What were those located on the 18th Street corridor?
Of these 5, we had 1 on the 18th Street, we had 1 on Florida Avenue, and 3 were on Columbia Road.
Okay, thank you.
Of those, since that happened, I know we've been in conversations, you've been in conversations with the council member, we've been in touch with the deputy mayor around this, seeking additional resources for the neighborhood. Would you mind maybe just going a little bit into, so those crimes that you talked about, the burglaries and then also the destruction of property, those are from January. Since then, we've had another rash of similar incidents centered around the same area, also crossing into a different police precinct. Can you talk a little bit more about those? I know you're not fully prepared because they weren't in January, but if you could just talk a little bit more about those, how they were related, and then how the precinct is responding to that.
Sure. Because we have a lot of the crimes in the single area, we're having one detective pretty much handle all those crimes, so he can piece together which suspects may be related. And so far, we have identified several different suspects. Um, some of them, whether because of the same clothing on the video cameras, they've been able to link. So we are out there looking for these individuals that we have the photo and video footage of. And once we do apprehend them, if it results in an arrest, it should result in multiple closures. At this time, we have different resources as far as we're having crime suppression, give the area attention. We got patrol. We're also conducting operation with unmarked vehicle. We've been in the area. Just last night, we had 2 calls come out at the same time. And the first one, we got the witness information and we were canvassing. We were not able to locate that person. But at the same time, the other location had individual that we were investigating who appeared to have cut his hands on glass. So we were looking into the possible relation since it was 1 block away. But further investigation that revealed that it was not the suspect. So we handled that as injured person having a mental crisis, and we helped them with that. We're continuing to see what other resources we can have, but we'll be continuing to have visible patrol to prevent further crime, and at the same time using unmarked vehicle as we can to try to apprehend. Because it's a small group of individuals that seem to be committing the same crimes, if we can apprehend them and arrest them, that should lead to the most improvement in the area.
Thank you. Thank you, Captain. Commissioner Wood.
Hi, thanks. So a lot of these robberies have been happening specifically in my single member district. So I mean, it's not something new. I think we've even discussed it on this committee before. I've been trying to talk to a lot of the business owners and constituents that live nearby. I'm kind of curious. I'll comment on what people have told me. And I'm curious, Captain, if it's reflective of what you've all gathered. Actually, just the last hour, I was talking to a few people in some of the businesses that were either attempted to be broken into or were robbed at gunpoint yesterday. Their suspicion is that it's a handful of people that are all dealing with narcotic addiction that spend time nearby, that will pass kind of the baton, so to speak, that one person will go scope out a place. They'll find places that have glass storefronts. They will either try to kick in the storefront or throw a rock at it. They will not touch any merchandise or cell phones or anything of value. They solely want money. And the suspicion is they probably want that money so that they can purchase the whatever intoxicants that they're using, that they're dealing with addiction issues. Is that something that sounds about on par with what you've gathered? And I have a follow-up question after that.
Yeah, there's a possibility for that. Right now, just based on the evidence, we can't confirm that there's drug addicted individuals involved. However, some of the cases, the video does show it is more than one individual. In one case that I looked at, there was 2 people, one smashed in and went into the business while the other stood outside. Then both of them left. And then a third person came by, went inside and came back outside. So some of these are 2 to 3 individuals. Usually it's 1 or 2 people. And the video seems to show most of the time it's one person, whether kicking or using a rock.
Okay, thank you. I mean, what caught my attention especially is that a lot of the institutions were being hit multiple times, which is pretty uncommon for this type of crime, I think. Usually people try to avoid the area, but it seems kind of unique in that sense. My other question, I would notice that after Streets Market, which is on Columbia, was broken into, I forget if it was a week or 2 weeks ago, but after that, there was, at least for several nights, MPD officers that were stationed outside of there. Is that accurate? And is that something that will be happening in the future? I'm kind of curious what the protocol and then also plans going forward are, because it seems pretty clear that there are individuals who are willing to go trace their same steps over and over again. So I think the good news might be that this would be potentially easy to interrupt, but it hasn't happened yet. So I'm curious where you stand on that.
Yeah. So when we have one specific area that has been targeted, we share that information. We try to give that specific area special attention with visible presence when units are not on assignment, or if they're handling something else like a report on the computer. But what we've seen is that uh, as our police vehicles, the blue lights were very visible. It's pros and cons. It does alert the bad guys and citizens where we are at the same time for individuals trying to commit these crimes that may occur within 1 or 2 minutes. They can easily spot where we are. So what we've seen is that if we stay for an extended period of time in one block, then we may have the same kind of crimes occur on 18th Street or further away. And so what we're trying to do is not have units focus specifically on one area, but continue their patrols concentrated in a certain area, and then try to complement by having the not as visible unmarked cars or possibly officers on mountain bikes to try to patrol and catch the criminal in the act of committing the crime.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I definitely appreciate that balance of wanting to protect people, but also, the short term of keeping people away, but the long term of being able to apprehend specific individuals. I recognize that's difficult. I had another question. I forget what it is, but oh no, I remember. I've had a lot of constituents say that they have photo and videos for several weeks now. I imagine that you've gotten most of that, but is there any need for any additional evidence to come through?
Yeah, so we welcome any information. So far, I believe the information that the detectives have gotten are predominantly from the business camera systems. Some of the calls that we've gotten, I know on 2 nights that I was working, we got a call from a citizen witness. They may have been across the street at a distance, but they saw someone that appeared to be running down the alley, and we canvassed. I looked for them in the alley. We couldn't locate them then. And then last night we had two witnesses that saw a subject and called 911. And so we were canvassing based on that. When we have witnesses that are willing to call and speak with the police, that's very helpful. A lot of times they may call and not want to be interviewed further. And then we do what we can with the information we have. But if anybody has their own personal video footage, whether because they have a Ring camera that might have caught part of it, or if they happen to be in the area and just videoed it with their phone, that information could all be forwarded. If they provide the location, date, and time, and either forward it to me via email, or it could be sent to the detective's office, and I can provide the detective lieutenant who manages all the detectives for the 3rd district. That would be forwarded to the investigating official or detective, and that would be helpful.
Thanks for confirming. I just asked because I've spoken to multiple people who have supplied a lot of evidence and seem to have a pretty specific idea of where the suspects spend time. So I was just curious why it's taking a bit of a time to, stop them. Thank you for your time.
Sure.
Captain, does 3D have one of the trailers, the camera trailers, or are those citywide? Those dispersed citywide?
I believe we have 2 at this time. They're deployed where we have the most violent crimes, such as repeated shootings for possible crew conflicts and things like that. We have one at the Columbia Heights
Yeah.
neighborhood, and we have another one, I believe, at 6th, 7th and T.
And do you think that would have any beneficial impact if there was one either on Columbia Road or on Columbia Road that you moved around every other night kind of thing?
So
I don't want to take it away from the other spots because I understand those other spots are, or at least the one up at 14th and Columbia is more significant. But is this a resource that maybe the city can provide more of that would be helpful?
Oh yeah, as far as resources, the more the better, because there's always a need. We can always put it somewhere. The effectiveness, it would be something that we would have to see about, because just like our officer that parks in a location with the lights on and is given special attention, it's possible that the next street over or around the corner will be the new target. So we want to focus on continuing to patrol the whole area with maximum visibility while trying to apprehend the actual small group of individuals that are committing these crimes.
Thanks, Captain Hong. I'm going to open it up in the chat for any members of the public who would like to ask a question. If you do, please use the raise hand function so Sean can promote you. Just to ask everyone, please try to be as quick as possible. We have a few more items on the agenda tonight, and also always, treat each other and Captain Hong with respect, please. Looks like Deborah has her hand up. Can we please promote her, Sean? Deborah, you're on.
Hi, thank you very much, and thanks for the update. I live on Kalorama Road near 18th, and I was just wondering, Captain Hong, is one detective sufficient to be handling all these crimes? And it just seems like there's more than the 56 that you had referenced in January. So I just wanted to get your feedback on that. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. So the detectives often, because they're working in shifts, on all shifts, whoever responds out to the initial calls will handle a lot of the initial legwork, trying to obtain video footage, all the information from the victims, and then the detective that assigns all the cases. Different detectives are given specific types of crimes. So these would fall under burglary or general crimes. And typically, I believe there's two that are handling it. But right now, the one detective, Detective Hernandez, is taking the lead on all of these. Sometimes it's easier for one detective to piece together all the different video footage, flyers, and keep it cohesive. What I've tried to obtain is from the detectives is an information packet that's going to compile everything together in one, rather than individual flyers, one product that the officers can utilize during the patrols. And we got that earlier today. So we'll be looking for all the suspects, but predominantly the ones that are linked to multiple cases. And that's the detective's office functions on their own, but that's typically how they investigate the crimes.
And from our conversation earlier today over email, it's my understanding that Detective Hernandez just closed out and had an arrest in another slew of cases that the neighborhood was very concerned about. So I think we're happy that someone like Detective Hernandez was assigned to the case. Also, Captain Hong, can you just comment to whether or not other officers are also assigned to help the detective when there are several cases that are kind of getting put on their plate like this?
So typically, the detectives handle all the investigative aspects after the initial reports taken. However, there are situations where patrol and detectives and crime suppression team will all coordinate and work together. Certain instances, maybe search warrants or looking for certain known suspects that the detectives have already identified, and we are just looking for them. Um, so there are times, and this is one of those times where uh, I've reached out to see, as far as the use of the unmarked vehicles, to coordinate with the officers and detectives. I know just last night I was speaking with a detective who was out in Adams Morgan, just driving around trying to locate the suspects. So we're working together.
Thank you very much. Let's promote Mike. He's up next.
Hi there. I'm wondering, in the times when you have arrested or ID'd people who are engaging in some of this crime, if they've been people who are local to the neighborhood or folks coming in from other places.
Yeah, sure. So when we do have the closures, we take a look at that. So, for instance, the last closure that we had, that Detective Hernandez assisted with, we had a lot of apartment buildings that were being burglarized, or they were breaking in or following residents in and stealing packages. And the video camera footage showed it was a handful of individuals, but this one individual, the detective was able to identify, had a specific gait. He had a different way of walking with a slight limp, and coordinating with the detectives and then the officers were able to immediately identify the individual as someone they've interacted with in the past. A combination of that, while we're investigating another individual on the street right by Unity Park for possible relations to these package thefts, the officer actually observed that individual, that suspect, and we were able to make a stop, and that closed out multiple cases, and that individual was held for the whole duration of the court system. So that was a success. When we find something like that out, I believe he was not a local to Adams Morgan area, but he was local to DC in the Northwest.
Thanks, Captain Hong. Sean, let's promote Matt for his next question, and then we'll go back to Mike afterwards.
Hey, is that me, Matt?
It is. We can hear you. You're on, Matt.
What wonderful. Thank you. I'm in the car here, so I appreciate your help while I drive. Captain, thank you for everything you're doing, and thank you also for mentioning Unity Park, which for many, many years has been at the top of mind as far as a place where during the day, nearly each day, I observed a multitude of crimes, some more serious than many others. I would appreciate if you could help provide us a little bit of information and data for the community regarding daytime versus nighttime incidents. I've heard, one or two of the ANC commissioners talk about, nighttime problems, and certainly there are, many problems at night. I suspect, though, that there may be just as many during the day, like the several unfortunate incidents that have happened at Phil's over the last couple of weeks, just for example. I also want to mention while I have a platform for a moment. Every single one of the buildings that I own or that I'm involved in or that I've invested in over the past year or two has experienced significant crime. And that crime has happened during the daytime. And it's a variety of things. And this problem has festered in the Adams Morgan community for too long. And I think sadly, we've all, kind of accepted that that this is just what happens. What we've been seeing over the last several weeks and several months is disastrous from an economic perspective and more than just an economic perspective, of course. And I hope that, the community collectively can collaborate to really try to understand, how we can, all improve the situation before it gets markedly worse and before, nobody wants to, open up business in Adams Morgan or invest in Adams Morgan. So thank you again, Captain, for sharing any data that you can.
Sure, thank you for that. So Unity Park, typically we've had more issues in the summer months, and a lot of the complaints that we get have been from morning until afternoon. By the time it starts getting dark, the park does kind of empty out. And so when I'm on my patrols driving through around after 9 p.m. or so, I may see one or two people, but they're not doing anything visibly illegal just in the park area. A lot of the complaints about the park is that the individuals may meet there for drug transactions or drug complaints, and they will walk off a block or two, either to the south or to the north by Safeway or into the alleyway behind Popeyes. There's different locations. So what they are doing has seemed to go into the side streets, and then the individuals return. So whenever we although we do patrol all the time, whenever we get information from the community, whether a 911 or 50411 text tip that gives us a description of somebody, what illegal activity they're doing, that allows us to contact the individual more thoroughly than an initial, just if we're on our patrols and we see someone and we just make conversation. So I know a lot of our residents, they do call or text, and a lot of them do it so frequently that I guess they're discouraged about doing it. But it does help us. It helps us to know when things are happening, which individuals may be happening with. Sometimes we get information with vehicles, and the officers go and look for that vehicle, try to research who the registered owner is, and there's different things we can do. So we appreciate the calls and the text tips. For the buildings, we do have that problem, and it's something beyond just the third district. It's throughout DC. But when we do see a significant increase at a certain time, the detectives will try to see which of these are patterns that they can link to the same individuals, the same suspects. And because a lot of these are occurring by the same individuals, those are the ones that we try to focus for maximum effectiveness. If we get someone that is a serial package theft or someone that breaks into the apartment buildings, having that closure, having them arrested, and requesting a court stay away from the building or the block, that's going to do more for the long-term benefit of the neighborhood. So that's what we try to do. I know we recently had another significant arrest for a known burglar, and officers did a good job. That one, the individual was called because he was observed trying to break into the front door with a knife. And there was a good description. Units got there, was able to get video footage right away. And with that information shared, they were able to stop and arrest the individual. And that does bring me to one point that would help. If there's any way that any individuals, residents, businesses have video camera systems, one, if you could contact your alarm company or security company to make sure they have the most up-to-date name and phone number. Because one thing we do find is when we do arrive at these in the middle of the night and we try to have them call the contact person, the alarm company many times will say there's no answer. And then we are it inhibits our ability to possibly get more information from video cameras right away to try to apprehend the individual. And sometimes, if depending on the circumstances, if the door is smashed and we don't have enough officers and we have priorities going on, we'll have to handle the priorities and come back to give special attention. And so we want to try to get the owners, get with them so they know to respond in, and that we can continue our investigation and try to wrap that up as quickly as we can and get the individuals responsible.
Thank you, Captain. I know we try to keep it to an hour, or sorry, to a half an hour with you. So I'm just gonna read a couple of comments that are in the chat just to get them on the record. Scott says that he lives on 18th and Columbia, is regularly on Columbia every day, several times a day, and that he rarely sees MPD, and just says that we need more accountability, especially if police are sitting around just on their phones in their cars. And then Tracy, one of our neighbors, Tracy, said that she heard glass shatter last night around 2 a.m. and that noticed that Streets is getting boarded up again. Which, yes, sadly, Streets Market was hit again as we went over. We're going to go back to Mike for one last final question. Mike, please keep it very quick, and then we're going to let Captain Hong get back to his very busy day job, his very busy night job.
Right. I was hoping for more of a discussion, because talking about this in the neighborhood as a thing is one thing. People are leaving the city. I've never thought of leaving the city in the 26 years I've lived here, but because of what's happening in this area, and I'm not the only person, like, I'm just hoping more than an update here and somebody coming on with an idea here, but we have Phil's Coffee is literally leaving DC because of this problem. And I just feel like we need to stand up. There is a flood of housing voucher recipients in this area. And I know that a lot of the problems are related to that. No one is talking about that. And what do we do next? What happens next? Like, how do we get involved in fixing this problem?
I think that's a very big question, and that's not one for Captain Hong. So Captain Hong, thank you for your time, and appreciate all the updates that you've been sending, both here and then also over email. Please continue the great work. We really appreciate it. Mike, it's a good question. I don't think that this is exclusive to DC. Phil's Coffee isn't just leaving DC, it's actually leaving the entire DMV, including the suburbs as well. And it wasn't explicitly about crime. I saw no statements by Phil's that said that they were leaving the DMV because of crime. They sell a $9 cup of coffee. That could be a reason why they're leaving the neighborhood. This is an issue that is happening all over the country. It's not just here in DC. There's a crime spike that's happened all over. When you infuse $6 billion in federal money into helping support sustainable social structures over 3 years, and then you just withdraw that money instantaneously, can create a lot of harm and hurt in our communities. People aren't getting the kind of support that they've had over the last couple of years. Money is getting taken away from our SNAP program. Money's getting taken away from our housing programs. All sorts of federal dollars that have been going to support our underpaid full-time workers, sometimes 3-job working folks, are going away. And I think that is causing a lot of harm and a lot of hurt. I think there's a lot of trauma still that people are dealing with from the pandemic. I think this is a really complicated thing. It's not just happening in DC. It's not just happening in Adams Morgan. But I certainly hear you. It's very frustrating. It's very scary as a parent, like raising 2 little kids in this neighborhood. It's very scary. I have not seen any statistical evidence that actually suggests that housing voucher recipients are more likely to commit crime in the neighborhood than non-housing voucher recipients. I would ask you to please check your assumptions on that. If you have some statistics to share, then certainly you should feel free. But I don't think that is something that I've heard as statistically relevant or significant here. Other than, folks in poverty generally tend to have greater confluence with the law. So, but as far as like just receiving housing voucher recipients, I have not seen that evidence before. Commissioner Wood?
Yeah, just to go off of those thoughts and kind of in the nature of the request for a bit of discussion, and I think it was from one of my constituents, if it was the mic I'm thinking of. I get asked this, I've gotten asked this quite a bit today, and in general, I think most proactive commissioners get asked at some point, what can commissions actually do? What can commissioners actually do? The real answer is not a good answer, so I try not to give it, which is very little. We don't have much power. We don't get paid. Usually we're pretty stranded by ourselves for a lot of different things that require quite a bit of investment. I don't like that answer because it's a bit of a cop-out, and I still think it's fair for especially elected officials in Washington, D.C. to take some accountability for using whatever mechanisms are in place. It's a weird answer, but I think that a lot of what we can do as commissioners and just people that are part of a neighborhood is something that's really hard to legislate, which is kind of cliche, but fostering and maintaining the sense of community and the relationships between people that establish trust. Now, in the short term, is that going to keep a person from breaking into a window tomorrow night? Probably not, because it takes quite a long time to develop that trust, which is why it's such an unfavorable answer to a lot of people, I think, because, understandably, we want short-term answers as well as the long-term ones. The medium-term ones, commissioners advocate for example, oversight of what agencies do have all the funding in DC. For example, NPD has $500 million budget every year. We talk about that. We talk about what's happening going to Department of Human Services, what's going into all these different areas that are receiving quite a bit of funding. We're relatively flush in money in DC, but that's not to say that there aren't difficult decisions to be made. Also, budget oversight that's coming up. So it's important for constituents to reach out to commissioners like us to make those needs and wants and thoughts clear so that we can advocate for that. We're going to hopefully be doing so as a commission, but even as individual commissioners, that's something that we can definitely be active with. But like I said, I'm kind of related to business turnover, at least in my experience in 1CO3, talking to people that live here, that work here, that own property or businesses, or all three. The things that have kept people going through this pandemic is being able to have this kind of intangible ties to a landlord or to the people around them, so that they don't feel like they'll be abandoned. That's not going to prevent all crime. That's not going to prevent all commercial vacancies, but I think it's a start. And it's something that's pretty feasible for commissioners to do, which is go and talk to people, make sure that even people we disagree with are acknowledged and understood. It's a starting point. I've been trying to do so. I know that my colleagues are doing a very good job as well. So I'm proud that we've been standing here. And it's not easy. I definitely understand the frustration. It's scary. I've lived in Latin America where, I've been robbed multiple times and it's not a fun feeling. Had murders happen down the street from my house there. It's not a great thing. So you want to be able to feel that you have some sort of autonomy in the situation and that we can make an impact and that you don't have to leave your home for fear of safety. Completely get it. Think it's valid. I'll leave it at there, but I really do appreciate everyone that's been kind of coming out, one, to express what they're feeling right now, but also just routinely making sure that we're supporting each other, whether it's going to small businesses, et cetera. Really appreciate it. So thanks.
In the question of what we can do more of, our building and a couple of other local buildings have set up little WhatsApp groups where we can relay real-time information with one another if crime is happening, and then also report that to the police and channel those responses in through a single individual so it doesn't overwhelm the system, but is actually helpful. I would recommend that you all do similar things. Definitely, we're stronger when we're working together. Part of what criminals look for is atomizing people and pushing them apart and expecting that they won't rely on one another and that they won't work together to defend themselves. So I would recommend that you form little local groups where you live. And can the ANC call a meeting of apartment leaders? The ANC is not given a list of apartment leaders in the city. That would be awesome if we actually were. So the power that we have is really to just kind of communicate out through this forum. I can suggest it to folks that are on the call, suggest it to folks that I know when I walk doors and chat with folks, but I certainly am suggesting to folks when I go and talk with them and I knock door to door and go around my SMD, I do say that they should form like a WhatsApp group where they can very quickly share information with one another if there's an attempted crime. So I have found over the last few weeks that Councilmember Nadeau has been extremely responsive to this in asking for additional resources, calling on the police to pull more into our police precinct to back this up, asking for additional resources for police to do these night patrols. I have found her to be a strong advocate for that. I know folks have kind of different ideas as to MPD's level of funding and whether it should be more or less. And I think both sides of that actually have really valid arguments. We give them $500 million a year. And so, there's some level of accountability that just needs to take place. But also there's a need for real resources for police to be able to do their jobs as well. So that's a delicate balance. And I think folks come out on different sides of where that should be. We are well into our meeting at this point. So I'm going to move us on to, and I think we've gotten a lot of comments in there. I appreciate the conversation very much, but I'm going to move us on to the next item on our agenda, which is to have a presentation by Mark Namder, leasee of a building located at 2440 18th Street Northwest, about his application to ABRA for a Class C restaurant liquor license for American Dream 3. Sean, if we could please promote Mark, I'd really appreciate that. And Mark, thank you for your patience. My apologies, this took so long.
I do not see Mark on the participants list unless he's another name.
Interesting. Okay, you're right. I don't see it either. So unless he is, unless he's the 202 number, but I'm not seeing a hand raise. And I think that might be
Correct.
Yep, I'm not seeing a hand raise on that. So I'm going to skip that item on the agenda, but I also am not seeing Janae from MOLA in the participant list either.
Taylor.
Oh, there, it's Taylor. Okay, great, cool. Under Taylor's name. Sorry about that. Okay, let's promote Taylor then. And we'll move on to the next item on the agenda to talk about Mola Empanada. Hey.
Hey.
Welcome back.
Hey, how are you?
We're really good.
Good to see you.
Yeah, it's good to see you too. Thank you so much for coming back. So we had a discussion last month, and I'll just remind folks that we already previously discussed this in anticipation that we would be getting this application coming through. It has in fact come through. I've listed it up on our agenda, and folks, it's linked if you all want to read the ABC application that popped up. And there's a notice of public hearing that's gone up on this. And the question now is whether or not the ABC or whether or not the ANC would be willing to agree to a stipulated license, so that you all can get a license and operating quicker than I think the June. Is that what it says on there? It's the
That's what it says.
Jeez, how are businesses supposed to survive during these periods? So I just we already heard. If there's anything new that you want to present, feel free to. And if you want to just kind of introduce yourselves again really briefly, and then we can move on to any questions or discussion.
Yeah, I'll just reintroduce myself and Taylor. My name is Janae White. I'm the co-founder and owner of Mola Empanada. And this is my fiance, Taylor Volpe, co-founder and of everything else, like doing this as a do-it-yourself restaurant. We're like both like operating as such. Mola Empanada is a Panamanian quick service restaurant, serving Panamanian Caribbean inspired empanadas, frituras, which are just like pan fried goods. And we're perfectly soon going to expand that menu to small plates, Panamanian tapas, if you will. And then perfectly in like the late spring, we'll have other programs like empanada classes, showcases on art, mainly Panamanian artists, but of course our neighbors, Central American neighbors, just those type of programs to really celebrate the Panamanian community and the food of our home kitchens of Panama. Taylor's going to take it away with our cocktail, potential cocktail program. I just spoke on.
Oh yeah.
Sorry.
Sorry. No, yeah. So
Okay.
we're just gonna try to, like, the purpose of the liquor license is just to add some drinks to complement our food, as we discussed before. And like we said before, we have no intention of making this into any sort of club or anything like that. It's we don't actually want that. We want to keep it kind of the way it's functioning now. And yeah, that's pretty much our plan and what we're hoping to accomplish.
That's great, Taylor. Thank you so much. I'm going to open it up. I already asked questions last month, so I'm going to open it up to fellow commissioners and any questions from the public. Commissioner Wood. Sorry, Commissioner.
No, Peter's first. Go ahead,
had
Peter. I'm
his hand
sorry.
up.
No, I don't have any questions. You go first.
Would you have a problem with, I know that the traditional closing time is 3 a.m. and you've listed your hours of alcoholic beverage service as 3 a.m. on Friday and Saturday. Would you have any problem reducing that to as part of a settlement agreement so that you could get a stipulated license to 1 a.m.?
So I guess we don't have, I guess, what would we want to, like, in Adams Morgan is very busy on the late night times, and we sell a lot of empanadas, say between midnight. When we were open till 3 a.m., we sell a lot of empanadas that late. I guess we wouldn't want to limit sort of a peak time just to give the guests like a full experience.
I'm not talking, you can continue to sell empanadas. You would just have to cut off your alcohol sales at 1 a.m.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, from our perspective is, I guess, why would we do that? And I guess what harm would it be to the citizens or to the community? I mean, I guess if an issue were to arise from this, we would definitely we're always open to discussing.
I think the community's at a point where it wants to see some nature of a change in terms of how licenses are approved and how, a restaurant license, while obviously you're not going to make the most of your money off of alcohol in a 10-seat environment, I don't know that unfortunate for you, this might be the point at which, we start turning a corner and cutting off alcohol sales at 1 as opposed to 3.
Well, I guess my response to this would just be kind of simple, as like, so we are trying to provide a really like family oriented or community oriented, not so much necessarily family, community oriented spot. We want people to come in, enjoy themselves. And to do that, we also want to pay our employees, and not just minimum wage. We want to compensate people. We want to give this as a place for people to come and put their talents to work for the community. And in order to, like, if we start cutting off revenue sources, that inhibits that limits our ability to do that. It limits our ability to grow, to offer more services, more machines, and different, make us more efficient. So I think we're going to run a very responsible, tight ship here. We're not going to be a party central place. And I guess we're, I guess I don't understand how us sort of serving up to the legal time would be.
Well, unfortunately, the legal time is what you agree to in this instance. And unfortunately, you're the first restaurant to come before us with the new ANC. So it's unfortunate for you, but I think it will be something that will be you won't be the only one. Trust me.
Well, I guess the law in DC states you can serve alcohol too.
Oh, the law in DC also states that if we protest your liquor license, it's going to be June before you have a hearing. So maybe it's better to settle it at 1 a.m.
I'm gonna just go on the record here and say that I wouldn't push for that. I don't think it's fair to start to push one business in a new direction that the other businesses haven't been pushed into yet.
But I'm in favor of pushing all of them because it's clear that the timing is an issue.
Well, I guess again, I'm asking you to kind of give us a reason why the timing is an issue. Like what harm or what duress does us being open, selling drinks till the legal?
No, you can stay open and sell empanadas.
I know. I'm literally specifically asking you, what is the harm from us?
Because my opinion, and this is my opinion, and people I've talked to, they're in agreement that if you start cutting back on the hours of liquor service, it's not going to affect restaurants. It will affect the taverns. And obviously we can't do anything about the 16 existing taverns. All right, until they come up for renewal, at which time I would be pushing to do the same thing for them.
Okay, so I just haven't heard anything that's specific to what us selling till 3 o'clock, what harm or like what specific thing Mola can do. That's all I'm asking. I mean, here's what I'll say. We want to do a settlement. We want to be a place where the community is welcome. We want to be a positive thing where everyone, enjoys our place. We don't want any negative experience. We want to limit as much as we can any negative experience that comes from Mola. But at the same time, I mean, just flat out saying, oh, we're going to ask you to restrict something. I mean, we pay rent. It's not cheap here. And we have employees that, like I said, we want to pay. And if the law allows people to sell alcohol till 3 o'clock, and, I haven't heard anything specific about what we would be doing to harm anybody by doing that. So
it's a general community feeling or a general community sense that the 3 o'clock may be too late.
Well, and there's legislative processes to change.
No,
that.
There's also a settlement process.
I understand that, but I
guess you don't understand it then.
I know.
Let's just.
You want to protest this? You want to go till June? That's fine. We'll sit in and wait till June. We've been running our business without alcohol, no problem. I've never met you. I don't know you. And if you have a problem, then go ahead, protest it. Shut down businesses in the community. That's
Taylor,
fine.
Taylor, let's calm. There's one.
I am calm. I don't know who this guy is, and I don't know what his problem is.
There's one commissioner here who feels that there is a community feeling that this needs to move to an earlier time. I don't think that is the consensus. It takes a consensus vote of the commission to protest a license. We can talk about this all back behind in a settlement, but I don't think that you will find that there is not ANC, that there is full ANC support to try to push every restaurant in the neighborhood towards an earlier time closure. So if you're open to a settlement, we will start to move towards that. It sounded like you were. I think that we are, and let's work on it. The time thing here is not a deal breaker for me. So.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, we're open to any community input. We would be open to a settlement. We're not super familiar with the process. We do generally understand how it goes. And like I said, we're open to anything, any reasonable thing specific to our business that we can do to make, everybody in the community enjoy our place, or to not, take away from it. We are 100% full. But I will say, I mean, I understand everyone's elected here to put forth the community's opinions and feelings, but I mean, threatening to protest us because we won't agree with you in a Zoom chat that we just met. I mean, I don't know. That's, that's for everybody else. I don't.
The one thing that is a deal breaker for me, Taylor, is rats. I hate them, man. I hate them. I'm at war. I'm at war with those rats. So let's figure out how we coordinate and work on that together. Cool.
Perfect. Yep. Sounds good to me.
All right. Commissioner Wood, did you have something you wanted to pitch in here?
I do. I'm glad I went second. So just so I can respond to some of that. I mean, I represent the area that your business is in. I've gotten to know you all since you started. So I'm glad to see you. And like, I think some people in the comments noted, at least in my opinion, the exact type of business that I'd like to see grow and flourish in Washington, D.C. And a couple of things just to reiterate what Commissioner Fauskini said. So for an ANC to protest, it does require the commission as a full to vote and have the majority of sitting commissioners at the meeting vote in favor. So of course, any individual commissioner is totally entitled to have their opinions and reflect the opinions that they're hearing or think they're hearing from their constituents. But in most cases, exactly one commissioner is not sufficient to protest. It needs to be, like any decision, a lot of the commissioners, literally the majority, to be able to do that. On the point of the late hours, I've been involved with multiple settlement agreements on the same block as all of you. I have never had that been really a point of contention where the hours were something that either in my experience as commissioner or even with the Colorado Citizens Association, you fall within their quote unquote jurisdiction. It's been discussed before, but to the best of my recollection, you can't remember anyone making it a focal point that there is some sort of groundswell of opposition to abiding by the law in place for Washington, D.C. I will caveat that it is fairly common, I think, in settlement agreements to say alcohol sales will stop 15, 30 minutes before close, something like that. That's pretty standard. On a related point, and maybe a good segue into our next point on the agenda, at least from my perspective and from conversations I've had around the community, there is a decent argument to saying that if we have especially small businesses that have a pretty low capacity for tables and how many customers will be in, there's an argument for having later hours being a deterrent to the types of crime that we've seen the last couple of weeks, which is late at night, places that are not well lit, that don't have people in them. That's a bigger conversation that I would not put you through because you're just going through a stipulated license application. And this is a question of, macroeconomics. But I think that there is an argument to say that it's at least interesting to assess, if not support, which is my case, having more people, having foot traffic, especially foot traffic for places that are locally owned, for places that clearly have shown they're in good faith and simply want to abide by the terms and conditions that have on a repeated basis been put into place for neighboring institutions that at least I haven't been made aware of any issues. So it's a long-winded way for me to say that I know this can be a stressful process. Glad you're here. Doesn't mean that people can't express their opinions, but I think that we're doing a good job at bringing those all together. And my sort of unrelated points, but not entirely, I think this is good evidence for why virtual meetings are such a useful tool. You all put a lot of work in, and during this call, you've attended to customers I've seen. So without the ability to literally be on a computer or phone right now would just be another barrier for you to just do the simple thing of existing as a business that I think genuinely wants to contribute to Adams Morgan. So thank you for that. Thank you for enduring my little diatribe right here. And I hope my points were clear.
Thank you to all three commissioners for hosting us tonight and for your inputs, and we welcome them. And debate is debate, it's how things get sorted out. So
Thanks
we're
for
be here. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. I believe that Commissioner Wood will potentially we'll discuss it and then we'll get back to you who will take the lead in the settlement agreement, because I know that there's some travel and other things that we need to sort out. So
okay, yeah, you guys have our contact info, so we're willing and able to meet and discuss it whenever you guys are ready. Like, we obviously prefer sooner than later, but whenever you guys can, we appreciate it.
We'll send you over some paperwork really quickly so you can see other similar businesses and what they've entered into. And I at least am not attempting to go out of line with the normal settlement agreements that we've entered into with other businesses in the neighborhood.
Okay, thank you guys very much. Appreciate it.
Yep, thank you.
Yep.
I still do not see the next the other business that was supposed to come and present tonight, we still have not actually gotten a posting for them, a placard for them. We were just trying to get to it a little bit early in order to offer it as a potential introduction in case their placard gets issued between now and our March meeting. So I think we can vote to table that item on the agenda and come back to it next month. If we need to, we could try to have personal conversations with that business owner over the next week. Does that make sense to everyone?
Quick comment. The last agenda item, there was a placard distributed from MOLA. So if we wanted to, we could vote to suggest that goes to the full commission, right?
Yes. Sorry about
Just
that.
making sure.
Yes. Before we move on, you're absolutely right. I would entertain a motion that the committee recommend put on the agenda, the March agenda for the full ANC consideration of a new retailer Class C restaurant CR application, Abra 123761 Mola Empanada LLC, located at 2438 and a half 18th Street Northwest, on the agenda, and that in the interim, we work on a community settlement agreement with Mola Empanada with the hope that we can put forward a motion for a stipulated license for Mola Empanada at the March meeting. Do I have a second?
You have a second.
I'll take the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That was 3. No, and that was all 3 of us. So there are no votes against, no abstentions. Okay. Last item on the agenda is the Adams Morgan moratorium zone expiration. We've got at least one more committee meeting to open this up for community discussion. At that committee meeting in March, I was hoping to invite in some experts to come and talk about this, talk to us about ways this might impact business in the community, the ways that it might impact crime in the community, the ways that it might impact all sorts of other traffic, all that sort of stuff. So I've reached out to a couple of think tanks and a couple of others that have some expertise in this area to see if they can come to our March meeting. I left this on the agenda for this meeting simply to provide another opportunity for community feedback. I know that this is now our 3rd committee meeting and we've also had 2 full ANC meetings where this item has been on the agenda and we've received community feedback. But I did see one person in the comment earlier who said that they would like to talk about this. So I will open it up for folks to raise their hands if they want to put a comment on the record about the Adams Morgan moratorium zone potentially expiring, and or the resolution that this committee passed back in December and that is currently pending before the full ANC. I'd ask folks to please try to keep their comments to no more than 5 minutes, but hopefully hopefully closer to 2 to 3. Thanks so much. I see Matt who spoke earlier too, but about something else. So we're excited to have his thoughts on this. Matt, please.
Be careful what you wish for, Jake.
I guess that's true.
No, thanks for giving me the floor for a minute. I sent to each of the ANC commissioners this evening, and because I wasn't sure if I'd be able to make it tonight, a longer email as well as a few documents, for one of which was my testimony from back in 2018, the last time when the commission and then ultimately ABRA was considering any modifications to the moratorium. And I had at that point supported the status quo as I had back in, and I supported what the ANC voted to modify back in 2013, which was really kind of the loosening of the CR licenses in the neighborhood.
I don't want to go too long as far as kind of taking a lot of time about kind of the reasons why, despite my general opposition to kind of any moratoria or kind of monopolies of any sort, why I do believe that the commission should take care and consideration with this particular moratorium, because I don't know if the proposal that has been on the table with the commission so far will really help to alleviate or to improve the larger economic conditions and business environment in Adams Morgan, which, as everybody knows, is struggling with an absurdly high commercial vacancy rate. And I would challenge the community to think about how we can address some of the issues that were talked about before, which I firmly believe are more so responsible for that vacancy rate than the existing moratorium that's in place. I also wanted to just share, because this came up, in the last conversation about the restaurant applying for the stipulated liquor license, that I believe that, just for example, one piece that would encourage the vacancy rate, the commercial vacancy rate in the neighborhood to go down, is to simplify the burdensome liquor license protest process that ANC 1C has supported now for many, many years. A process that has provided a strong disincentive for risk and investment. The process hurts truly awesome operators, and has really been abused by members of the community to force operating restrictions that make no sense for specific businesses. The last time that I got upset at an ANC meeting in Adams Morgan was when the commission unanimously voted to protest the license for Revelers Hour, our tenant at the Admiral Heights building on Columbia Road. After months, negotiated operating parameters that were completely unnecessary for the benefit of the neighborhood. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm all in favor of prohibiting rats in the alleys or in our building for that matter. But these types of negotiations drag on for months. And operators know that these negotiations drag on for months, and they make it less likely to want to be doing business in Adams Morgan. This also came right after Revelers Hour had just won a Michelin star at Tail Up Goat. And this is exactly the type of group that should be welcomed with open arms in Adams Morgan. Settlement agreements are not meant to be pro forma, and they're not meant to be standardized. Conditions in certain settlement agreements, just because they're in those settlement agreements, that doesn't mean that they should be in every other settlement agreement. In fact, the law expressly prohibits that. And settlement agreements should be tailored specifically to the operation of that whatever business is applying for a liquor license. Again, that's just one item that I believe that we can hopefully do better at in the future, and that'll help to ease the commercial vacancy rate in Adams Morgan. I also want to just make it abundantly clear, it's not like there's a whole host of taverns or bars or wine bars that are looking to open up at Adams Morgan that aren't interested in selling food. You just kind of heard it from somebody who's in the business. People want to be serving food along with their drink. And I would encourage you, if there are groups who claim that there may be a long list of operators waiting to open business in Adams Morgan who would take advantage of the loosened moratorium, to ask for names and to ask for data and real information. Thank you for your time tonight, and I appreciate everyone's thoughtfulness and care on this sensitive topic.
Thank you so much, Matt. It's funny, you said I was going to regret it, but I don't at all. That was really fantastic, thoughtful, informed testimony. So thank you for your time and for showing up tonight and for and for your thoughts. I'm going to hand it over to Commissioner Wood and then to Commissioner Shapiro. And then I have some follow-up thoughts on what you said too.
Thanks. I'll be brief. First, Matt, I know you sent an email. I was out talking to businesses without my phone, so I know it exists, but I have not read it. But I appreciate that you recommunicated here, and we've had some conversations in the past, which I think you mentioned that, which have been pretty enlightening. And I like, just like any constituent, I enjoy hearing all these different perspectives. Kind of two sort of unrelated things. First, I do think it's interesting from my perspective, the neighbor resident fear that exists among some people is that, frankly, the perception is that more taverns means more trash, noise, and potential for vandalism, basically. It's not clear if that's the case. It's possible. But what I think is fascinating, that if it's true, and this is a bit more contentious, but if it's true that there's not, a rush of 50 bars that are going to suddenly move in and start being irresponsible or responsible in any case, that's kind of an argument for why there's not that much risk on loosening or letting expire the regulations on tavern licenses in the first place. If it is unlikely that there's going to be this huge wave of, like I said, responsible or irresponsible actors that just want to serve alcohol, there won't be a drastic change. I hope that's the case. I think gradation is important, and I think that there's some validity to that claim. It's expensive to operate any type of business. Financially expensive, but even at this point, it's, emotionally expensive, considering that there seem to be risks. I think personally that they're isolated in a few individuals, and I hope that this kind of trend in the last 3 weeks of vandalism is something that's curtailed shortly. But in any case, I mean, we live in a city where these risks have continued to exist since slavery, and it's not a coincidence that that timeline matches. But that conversation aside, really appreciate the thoughts. I said I'd be brief. I kind of lied. Second thing, just an important note. I haven't seen it. Abra officially emailing text of the decision to extend the moratorium for 90 days. Like I said, it's been in an email communicated to me that it happened. Their search system's not particularly great, so I can't find an official document. I don't doubt that it didn't happen, but just thought it'd be important to note that if anyone has seen something I haven't, it'd be helpful just to kind of see the official text of that. But those are my thoughts. I'll be quiet the rest of the meeting, I think.
Commissioner Shapiro. Thank you, Commissioner Wood. We can't hear you yet, Commissioner Shapiro.
I'm sorry. Matt, I think your point about cookie cutter settlement agreements is very apt. I really do. I think if they're not tailored to specific businesses, or if they're not tailored to a desire to generally change the nature of the community. Is Matt still here or not? Okay. What would your opinion be if Tail Up and Revelers had to cease alcohol sales at 1? What would your opinion be?
Sean, Matt, you don't need to respond, but if you would like to, you can either in the chat or we can promote you if you raise your hand. Doesn't seem, oh, there we go.
Hey, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
I mean, I don't really have a strong opinion either way. I mean, I think that if they believe that they're going to that there's a customer demand and that they can operate successfully at those times, that they probably would be interested in doing. I mean, they're also both located in mixed-use buildings, one of which, has 80 rental apartment units above it. And so, there's a community there. And they, and as well as many other, restaurants and operators who are located in the neighborhood, have a very strong incentive to be good community neighbors and partners because their best customers and guests live potentially literally right above them.
Okay. Commissioner Shapiro, did you have
Nothing else.
I just wanted to address Matt's concerns about the protests, the history of the ANC and how we address protests and how we address stipulated license. I could not agree more. I know that Commissioner Wood feels very similarly, that this process has been used to harm businesses in the past for not great reasons, without a lot of forethought into why. We're trying to change that culture very dramatically. It's part of the reason why we had the owners of Mola Empanada come and speak to us and present even before the provisional, even before the placard was issued, because we wanted to be prepared to do it in a ANC meeting and not have to run it through committee if we didn't have to. We want to have the opportunity to talk with folks. We want to have the opportunity for community concern, and that's always the balance that we're trying to get right here. But this shouldn't just be an opportunity for the squeakiest wheels to change the entire culture of the neighborhood and to overturn our district laws. And so, we are trying to be as business friendly as we possibly can be as an ANC. I think we've shifted culture a lot over the last 4 to 8 years. And I hope that we're able to shift even more in that direction while still offering a great environment for the neighbors to come and have an open dialogue about the process as well, and to voice their concerns. Commissioner Wood, sorry.
I know I said I wouldn't talk, but I promise I'll be brief. You just remind me one point. Going back to what we discussed earlier, what can commissioners do to make a difference in the neighborhood? Of course, bad faith actors deserve to be held accountable for the behavior, et cetera. But short of that, before we know what is a good faith or bad faith actor, what we can do is presume that we can be proactive and stewards of camaraderie and partnership in the community, and not presume that we're adversaries before we know anything else. I think that's an important stance that I try to take, and I know that several colleagues, including some here, share that. So it's not always easy, but we can definitely take those steps. And that is exactly how community develops, the type of community that, at least in the long term, if not shorter term, will be able to mitigate risks like all the things we've been seeing lately and beforehand.
Any other community feedback about the moratorium zone? Thank you, Commissioner Wood. That was very thoughtful. All right. I don't see anything else here. I just, my heart goes out to our businesses that have been harmed over these last couple of weeks. You're such valued members of our community. It's so hard on y'all. I know you've been targets. I know that you're feeling it. So my heart goes out to you. We're trying to do our best to make sure that we've got a good response that's actually going to get this problem solved for you. So thank you for your patience as we try to figure it out and work through the vast bureaucracy of the government in order to try to do it. But we really appreciate you and all the services that you provide for our community. So thank you so much. And with that, we're tabling the code red agenda item. And I believe that closes out our agenda for the evening. Anything else there, commissioners?
Yes, one other comment that is okay, Jake?
Yeah, please.
All right. I recently went through the ABC board training orientation, the average training and orientation for ANC members, and I was kind of shocked at something that they actually wrote down on page 42 of the orientation, so that y'all can look it up. They state the specific items that they'll give great weight to ANCs on. And then they say other items that they won't give great weight to ANCs on. And that was pretty shocking to me, because I'm pretty sure that's a violation of the DC Home Rule Charter, which is our constitution. And I was really shocked at that one. That was the first time I ever gave pause to, I'm not, what the heck the ABC board is doing. And I'm concerned about it, not just because of ABC licenses, but also because of cannabis licenses. They're going to have additional responsibilities. And I would be shocked at the idea that they would be taking actions that might affect our communities and not give great weight as they're required to. And maybe I'm misunderstanding what they say in their actual in their own documents. But I would like either for the ANC as a whole, or I'll do it individually, to question them on this.
Please do, and then come back and report back to Peter and I. I'm sure we'd be love to hear it. So thank you very much. Any other final comments, Commissioner Wood? Okay, with that, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for attending. We really appreciate the community.